Hello, I'm Donna Lee from Vaughan Public Libraries. I'm here with Micayla Doria, artist and founder of the Celebrate Toronto Festival. Micayla's one of our living library guests and is here to talk to us today and tell us her story. Welcome, Micayla. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I was hoping you could tell us a bit about the Celebrate Toronto Festival. Where did the inspiration for it come from, and what was the very beginning? What was the first part of this journey?
Yeah, well, I graduated from OCAD University, and I was in drawing and painting. And when you graduate from drawing and painting, you kind of have to create your own space. You're, booking galleries and doing your own shows to sort of create a name for yourself and get people engaged in what you're doing. So I was doing that for a while, and you're always trying to find the new idea for your next show and what the theme would be. So one particular show I wanted to do it about the city of Toronto. And when I was doing some, research and getting to the history of the city, I realized it was turning 180 years old that coming year. So that was the theme, like Happy Birthday Toronto, and it was sort of like an art show gala night. And then it kind of went very well, and I decided, okay, we're going to keep running with this. And then it eventually turned into a nonprofit organization, and then turned into a whole full-blown festival.
So now that it's a festival, what's been the biggest challenge you faced in getting a big event like the Celebrate Toronto Festival up and running?
A lot. There's a lot. I mean, I didn't go to school for any of this, so it's all been a learning lesson. Like you're figuring out, okay, how do I go from one thing, just curating art shows, into getting the right permits that I need, and finding, sponsorship and grant money and all these things you need as a nonprofit organization. So it was a lot of self-learning, a lot of volunteering and other, companies that do the same type of thing to learn, like how do you navigate, how do you do it? So it's just being self-taught and perseverance, a lot of perseverance.
The Celebrate Toronto Festival has now been running successfully for several years. Has it gotten easier as time goes by, now that it's a bit established, and you, or do you find that there's new challenges every year?
It's been easier logistically, because it's sort of, now you have a template of what you're doing, how you're going to do it, and you have built a network of people that you're going to be talking to throughout the whole process, and who you're hiring, and who you're what you're renting, all that stuff. So logistically, it's been easier, but there's challenges. I mean, there's COVID-19. I mean, that was a challenge nobody saw coming, and it completely almost decimated events, and live music and everything that I do. So, I mean, the challenge with that was figuring out how do you still run and turning into like a virtual platform, and the challenge that goes with that, So the world is changing, and you just evolve with it. So there's always those unexpected challenges.
That sounds like what happens with some library programs.
Yeah.
I also know that you've traveled to many countries and have been involved in several community projects in other places. Did this international experience contribute to the development and the vision of the Celebrate Toronto Festival?
Yeah, no, it certainly has. Like I've traveled a lot. I've been to, I've lost count, but probably about 90 different cities. And every time I travel, I try to get as involved into the culture as I can, and, see how they, reignite their city squares with arts and culture to, like understand how our city's celebrating themselves, and how are they running their festivals, and how does, the citizens react to that? Like what's the engagement? And every time I come home, like I'm very inspired. It's amazing what the world is doing in other places. But it's also funny, because every time I come home, I feel like I have a little bit of these countries and cities right here in Toronto, because we're so multicultural. So it's, it's inspirational, and I try to bring a little bit of what I learn when I'm out there back to the city, and the city also already kind of has it here too. So it's good. You can travel the whole world in a weekend if you just stay in Toronto. It's interesting.
What an interesting way of looking at
it.
But yeah, Toronto's special.
Yeah, definitely.
I also know that you're an artist, and you graduated with a degree in fine arts. Were you always passionate about art, even as a child? And when you were a child, looking back, and when you were a child sort of envisioning your future, did you ever imagine that you'd be doing what you're doing now? Or did your life just take unexpected turns along the way.
Unexpected turns. I never would have imagined this in a million years. You know, when I was a kid, I was very into arts. My mom was she was very artsy, so I always grew up, you know, doing crafts and painting and things like that. And then I got involved in dance, and I was doing choreographed shows and things like that. So I thought, oh, I'm going to be a dancer. And then it turned into me going to OCAD and getting back into fine arts. And then I graduated from there, doing what I was doing for a few years. And then Celebrate Toronto sort of evolved. So it goes from sort of choreographing dance to curating art shows to now sort of curating festivals, you know? So it's still, even though I'm not in technically the fine arts anymore, I still kind of look at it as I am, because there's a lot of creative process when it comes to doing what I'm doing, you know? Even though it seems like it's a lot of paperwork and permits and sponsorship and grants, there's an art to it in a way, because it's my passion, right? So I still feel like what I'm doing is art, because in a way I'm expressing to the government, I'm expressing to the city, I'm expressing to councillors and the mayor, I'm expressing to, you know, other citizens my vision and my passion for the city, right? So to me, I'm still in art. Yeah.
I like that way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's been the most rewarding part of being involved in community-based projects?
Yeah, well, with this specifically, every year I meet so many different people that are excited to be either a part of the festival, performing at the festival, or have attended and just say, how can I get involved, or I want to volunteer, and just seeing that the community is just as excited, and it's kind of like a love movement. It's not just something that people come to and they get something off a food truck and buy something from a vendor and watch some live music. It's something where I want to be a part of this too. You know, like, this is something important, and I'm a Torontonian and I'm proud, and you know what I mean? People want to be involved some way, and that's amazing to me. People just saying, how can I do this with you, right? There's that, and just even, you know, from like a corporate standpoint, just in the 3 years that I've been running it as a festival, because before that was like a gala, I've partnered with Google. I've had the federal government tweeting about Celebrate Toronto, which is amazing. You know, wake up and it's like, what's going on here? And, you know, Justin Trudeau's like, oh, Celebrate Toronto, hashtag. It's like, this is amazing. I didn't think having like a little idea and throwing a little art show so many years ago would turn into this. So that's what's rewarding. It's like, it's what an idea can turn into if you just keep going with it, right?
It's exciting.
It's exciting, yeah.
So what is your hope for the Celebrate Toronto Festival in the future, and for yourself? So where do you see the festival in 10 years, and where do you see yourself taking all of your ideas and your passion?
Yeah, well, I'm taking the next step this coming year in 2023. So instead of just having the festival in one place for a weekend, I'm expanding it across the city. So we're going to take it from a weekend to 2 weeks, and then hopefully over the next few years it goes well, and I can do the whole month of March, where we're just celebrating Toronto for the month of March. Different programs, and trying to get involved in all the different neighborhoods, out to Scarborough, out to Etobicoke, trying to get everybody to, you know, celebrate the city that they're in and learn something new, get involved in different programs, you know, meet different musicians, find small businesses. It's just appreciating where you are, and also for tourists to see that Toronto's this fantastic place that you should, you know, come visit. We got it all here, you know. So that's sort of where I'm going with it, sort of getting people to see Toronto for what it is, you know. And I don't know, in 10 years, Toronto's going to be turning 100 and, oh my God, it's going to be turning 200 in 11 years. So it'll be a big year in 10 years from now. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm excited. Yeah.
And just one last question: where do you have any advice for anybody who is interested in arts or interested in celebrating Toronto, or any advice for anyone else?
Yeah, well, the advice is if you have a dream and you have a passion, you have to stick with it. I mean, so many things can get you bogged down. You know, either there's a lot of competition out there, or you feel like there's somebody doing something better than you, or whatever it is. But if you give up, then you're never going to get to where you want to get to, ever. You know, and sometimes the journey is a lot longer than what you think it's going to be. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and it's still not where I want it to be. Other people may be looking at it thinking, oh, wow, this is great. But to me, you're always your worst critic, right? Mm-hmm. You're always going to be thinking it's not where I want it to be yet. But you have to be grateful and thankful for what you're doing now, you know, and just never lose sight of what you want in life, and don't be worried about any twists and turns or barriers or things that fall in front of you, because those are your learning lessons. It sounds, very cheesy in a way to say it, but it's 100% true. 100% true. There's so many times where I thought, what am I going to do? Or this is bogging me down, or do I keep going? And the answer is, yeah, I started this and I'm going to continue with it, and I'm glad that I did,
Well, thank you so much. It's inspirational, and thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing your passion, and for sharing your experience as one of our living library guests with Vaughan Public Library. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm hoping that your story will help inspire other people to get up and get involved, and to find something that they care about and find something that they're passionate about. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.